Hi everyone, I'm Luke Hector and this is the Broken Meeple, a show where I rave and rant about board games, but usually more the latter. Here we've got a nice little filler coming out at Essen from Catch Up Games. Sorry that I don't have the top 10 of the BGG hotness to talk to you about, but sadly I'm not related to Asmodee Nordic countries and we don't seem to get a lot of stuff in advance in the UK. Yeah, certain events in our history might have something to do with that. But this is a little filler that didn't intrigue me at first. I came across this on the Essen preview, and I already had set it to ignore. I'd gone, whatever, it's Castle Combo, the name isn't exactly grabbing me, the cover, whatever, and I didn't recognise anything else really about it, so I had originally glossed over it. But then rahdo stuck it on his on one of his videos, and he tends to love everything, but he was very adamant that this was going to be like one of his top 100 games. It's like, okay, there's more to this than meets the eye. And so I was able to get a review copy of this. I mean, a 25 to 30 minute filler. It'll be nice and quick to play. I had a look at the components and sort of thought, maybe there is a little hidden gem here. Well, that's for me to find out and to tell you.
Get on with it.
So this really is a very simple game to teach. Basically, you will have 2 decks of cards with 3 face-up displays next to them, and basically they just represent different types of characters. You're building up a 3x3 grid with these characters that will score in different ways, like counting number of coloured shields, spatial awareness, like are they in the left-hand side or the right-hand side, are there lots of yellow shields and the road that it's in, little things like that, but with a few other scoring conditions on top. During each turn, you have this guy who sits next to one of the rows, and that's the row you're allowed to buy from. But you can spend keys to scrap the cards in that row, or to move the guy to the next row so that you can buy from there. But only one of them each round, not both. And then the idea is that you choose a character that you want to buy. So, for example, I could buy myself the Mother Superior card here. It will have an instant ability that triggers, so in this case it gets me 4 keys. Great, pop it in my grid. And it will also have a scoring condition, which in this case, 5 points if she's in the top row. Okay, cool, nice and simple. In my grid she goes, and I'll probably put her in my top row. This then replenishes, and that's your turn. Yeah, that's pretty much your turn. This guy will move around depending on what cards get bought and what people spend keys, but basically it is literally simply a case of see where he is, decide if you want to move it, buy a card, trigger an ability, and then once everybody's got 9 cards in their grid, you score up and see what happens. Now there are 1 or 2 other little points. One of the scoring conditions involves you putting money on the cards, which will allow you to score points. And of course, if you really can't afford a card, or if you don't want anything that's there, you can take a face down card. So basically you decide, right, nobody else can have a jester. Face down, in my grid, gets me a bunch of coins and keys, and it's worth no points. But that's pretty much it. Everybody carries on, everybody gets 9 turns each. Find your grid, total up the points, and see who wins. So yeah, not a lot to say really about the rules. It's very straightforward, and that's probably not even its strongest point. This is a very simple game. I mean, the rules literally are summarized on the back of the rule book, and you can teach this game, if you're doing it properly with other players, with doing examples in front of you, in less than a couple of minutes. It really is that quick. The only blemish that I will say on that is that they only give you, which I struggle to believe why they do this. They only give you 1 reference aid with all the iconography on it, and there's quite a decent amount of iconography. Now, most of it's fairly simple, but some of it isn't. Some of it you won't know what it does. It's a special rule. So why can't you be just like, spend an extra, I'll pay you an extra 50p for the game if you just print out 4 copies of these, especially when they're double-sided. It's annoying having to pass this round for people to sort of go, hang on, which side is it on? Oh, fair enough. Don't print them double-sided, or if you're going to print them double-sided, print 1 per player. That really does get my goat. But small blemish because the iconography and the rules are not that difficult to understand in this game, but still, for crying out loud, you could have been near perfect in that regard. But it really is straightforward. You teach the game, you get going, and it is done in 25 to 30 minutes. Nice and quick. It's not outstaying its welcome for a filler game. Components-wise, I was actually surprised to find the components really solid as well. I mean, these cards are good quality. I'm probably going to sleeve this copy, but I don't think you desperately need to if you're not too fussed about that kind of thing. And you actually get nice, very thick cardboard components, big chunky coins and chunky keys. The only downside is that when you're punching them out of the cardboard, it's a bit like the old Catan games where basically the paper doesn't like to come off the bits you're punching very much, so you are going to get a few times where the paper basically rips off the piece. But big whoop, it's not like you're paying $70 plus for this game. You're basically buying a small little filler. You even get a score pad, which, unlike games like Forest Shuffle, for example, actually separate out each card, so you can score it up really easily. Why Forest Shuffle didn't do this, I don't know, but this one is. It's not built to a budget. I mean, even this guy is overly chunky. You know, they put every pound that is spent into this, or I guess every euro in this case, is being put somewhere. Just wish they could have spent an extra euro on more reference aids. Now, with all that said and good, is it fun to play? Yeah, it honestly really is. You've got a decent amount of decisions on your turn, because not only have you got 6 cards to pick from as well as the face down thing, you might decide you need to move this guy or you need to refresh a row, but then you've got to consider your whole grid and possibly what other players are doing, because there's no good leaving a character there that could give another player 1,000,000 points if, you know, you're thinking, well, there's not much there I like, I need a face down card. Well, you know what, you're going to get a load of points if you take this locksmith. I'm going to make that my face down card. But more often than not, you probably will just let other players do as they would, but you're still looking at your thing going, well, you know, I could get that guy for this row, that'd be cool, score points. And then you see another card, you're like, oh, that'd be good to get a bunch of points as well, but where am I going to put him? Am I put him above, put him below? Oh, I don't know. And it's not like these are like big game breaking, you know, hard to think of turns, but there's enough depth in the game for what needs to be done for a 30-minute filler, and that's kind of where a lot of the strengths of this game is. It does everything that a 30-minute filler should. It keeps to that time frame. I can teach it in less than 2 minutes. The components are solid. The scoring is done well. You know, the depth of the game with these abilities is not autopilot. I mean, you know, the last game I played free player, I won with 79, second place was 72, third place was 44. If you don't play this properly, if you try to do this on autopilot, you will lose by a considerable margin. But the people who are playing this reasonably well should be able to have some reasonably close scores. But it's just a nice, it's one of those games where you have decisions to make, but it doesn't burn the brain, and it's just smooth. You know, the only slight downer is that maybe AP can take over now and again. I'm not sure I would recommend sticking this in front of somebody who is brand new to games. Like, I'm not sure I could call this, I suppose you could call it gateway. It is quite simple, but then, you know, people trying to deduce what's good on abilities on cards can trip up a brand new player to games. But this is definitely liked. I mean, anybody else above that level is going to get this without any trouble at all, and even gamers will get something out of this because they'll be trying to create really cool combos with the cards, hence the name, Castle Combo, and, you know, there's enough here to make you go, oh, but I don't want that card, well, maybe I should take him. And I was like, well, that's pretty good. Should I refresh the row? These keys are worth victory points. Do you want to spend one to do it? Well, I kind of need to because it's better than the alternative. Just little things like that to add up to a big deal. Even watching your money is a big deal, because you only start off with 15 bucks and you'll have cards that can cost a fair amount. They will generally generate money based on what's in your grid, but you could end up with a situation where you've got to think, that character would get me a lot of points, but if I do, I'm going to be bankrupt the next turn. I'd have to take a face down card. Maybe it's worth taking someone who gives me less points but gives me a bit of money so that I can actually buy more cards in sequence. That stuff has to be considered as well. Again, not game burning, not brain burning, but just enough depth there. It's kind of weird that they did put like a different distribution of the cards though. I mean, it's written on the back so you've got full access, but I get they're sort of trying to keep to a roughly thematic thing. Like, for example, the farmer shields, you only get them in the village cards, you never get them in the castle. Whereas the noble ones you get only in the castle and only one in the village. I get that there's a theme reason for doing that, but I feel that maybe that's just overcomplicating the game slightly. Maybe they could have just made it even across the board, had 2 rows of cards, and that would have done or something, because nobody's really focusing that much on this particular distribution chart, apart from, I suppose, those 2 extremes. The ones in the middle, big whoop. You know, it's a case of, well, what do I see there? There's an element of like forward planning you can think of, but it's a 30-minute filler. If you start overthinking these things, then what are you here for? But yeah, I do think this is an excellent filler. It ticks a lot of boxes right. In fact, the main box it doesn't tick for me is the fact that for all the iconography that's in this game, they decided to only go with 1 reference aid and make it double-sided. You know, that is a pain, and certainly there are the occasional hiccups where I'm having to explain the rules, although what I tend to do is to go, right, I'll just explain what each card does as it comes out, rather than feed you the entire iconography chart, because there is a decent amount there. That seems to work quite well, but you know, as soon as it appears on BGG where I can scan and print this another few copies of this, I'm gonna do it. It's just gonna happen. But yeah, I think for the cost that you're paying for what I thought was just gonna be a complete whatever, who cares, not that interesting. It's another game, yeah, it's another one of 1,000 games being released to Essen. We can let this one slide. I'm actually highly recommending you pick this one up, and I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. I almost considered giving it a 10. It really is not only enjoyable, but it ticks a lot of boxes. Do I want to play it straight away after I played it once? Probably not, and that's maybe another reason why it drops to a 9. It's not something that I would play multiple times in a straight line, but it's just a really solid filler game. Good enough depth, good components, easy rules, easy to put away, easy scoring. It you know, other than that reference aid, it does everything it needs to. Top 100 games ever? Well, I might be stretching it a little bit, rahdo, but I'm certainly thinking that this has got to be like one of the best filler games that's out there now. And for something that doesn't really have a title or, well, I mean, the cover's not bad, the cartoony artwork's quite nice, but, you know, for a game called Castle Combo, where if you heard that without any context of the game, would you have even, you know, blinked twice to check out the game? Well, I'm telling you, if you're up the catch-up game stand, check this out. This really is deserving of a 9 out of 10 seal of distinction, and I'm going to sleeve these cards and I'm going to keep it in my collection because it really does do the job so nicely. So that's it for me on this episode of The Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, then please thumb it up on YouTube and thumb it up on Board Game Geek when it goes live on the page. Check out the rest of my content I've been doing lately. There's going to be a little bit of a break soon for Shake, Battle and Roll Con that's happening this weekend, followed straight by Essen. So once the reviews have gone up for this week, it's probably going to be a little bit of a while, like a week and a half before you see more content, probably when I get back from Essen. There's a lot going on in my life. Some of us need a break, but hopefully there'll be plenty of you to watch until then. So until next time, remember, regardless of whether you're willing to let yourself be surprised by a hidden gem every now and again, it's still only a game, but this is definitely one worth checking out. Take care, and bye for now.